let us talk a little MMA here on the program with the host of Ringside Report Radio, Wednesdays and Fridays here on TSN 690, and the host of Wrestling Uncensored on Saturdays. You can follow him on twitter.com/DaveSimonMMA, or you can check out ringsidereport.net. Dave Simon.
Yes. Just got the strangest call a second ago.
Yeah, I saw your face. I wasn't sure what that was about.
Someone just called up and asked me, why do they call it an octagon? I don't think that was an MMA question. I think that was a geometry question.
Oh, really? He just didn't know, well, octo, 8 sides?
Well,
no,
I don't know if that was an MMA question or not. I'm not really sure.
I think it might be MMA related, but
I mean,
all of them use an octagon, right? I mean, Bellator and...
No, Bellator has a circle cage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you
the
prefer
UFC, that? UFC has the octagon. I don't...
Strikeforce had an octagon as well?
No, I think they had a 6-sided gimmick. I don't know what that was. What's a 6-sided thing?
Hexagon, maybe?
Yeah.
Pentagon's
maybe.
5.
Yeah.
Could be a hexagon.
I don't know. I'm not good at geometry. The guy asked
clearly,
me.
yeah.
I don't know. I know what an octagon is because of the UFC, so that's pretty much it. I know it has 8 sides, though. I know that. Octo 8. Like an octopus. You understand?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I don't really have a preference, though. Some people like the ring, and Pride used to use a ring. They use a ring sometimes in Japan and stuff like that. But I like the cage. I think it's good. I think it's more conducive to wrestling.
It's more dramatic as well.
Yeah. It's not as accessible, though, for the fans in the building. I think.
And the camera guys.
Yeah, the camera guys have to stand up on top. But the ring is a little bit easier to kind of see what's going on inside. But when you push a guy up against the fence, it's good to have that fence there rather than running a guy into ropes where he can fall out or stuff like that. So it's actually more conducive to the wrestling, to the takedown in the cage. Why are we talking about this?
I don't know. You brought up geometry and octagons and. All right, Dave. What's happening in the UFC lately?
UFC 166 going down this Saturday night in Houston, Texas. Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos. It is the trilogy fight. Junior won the first one, knocked out Cain in under a minute. Cain won the second one, beat up Junior Dos Santos for 5 straight rounds, a 25-minute beatdown. And now the rubber match, the third fight for the UFC heavyweight title, the 2 best heavyweights in the world. I think these 2 guys are far and above the best in their weight division, the 2 baddest dudes on the planet. I expected them to fight several times over the course of their careers. I think this is the 3rd time that they will fight, but not the last time that they will fight. I see these 2 guys as long-time rivals in the UFC, and
the promos have been great for it, by the way. I've seen some ads and so forth. They're really billing it well, and like you mentioned, they're the 2 guys that are above everyone else, and you can feel it too when they promo it.
Yeah, they really are the class of their division. There are guys at heavyweight that are close to them, but not quite them. It really is Cain and Junior at the top of the heavyweight division in their own kind of league right now. I could see maybe 2 guys at heavyweight that could hang with them, and those 2 guys would be Daniel Cormier and Josh Barnett. I think they can hang, but I don't think they can beat them. And I really like that Junior Dos Santos, Cain Velasquez are fighting again because they really are number 1 and 2 in the world. And you look at combat sports, the Klitschko's are fighting over in boxing, but it's the heavyweights. People really want to see heavyweights, and I think boxing has kind of dropped the ball on the heavyweight division, and MMA has picked it up. We have a legit heavyweight champion of the world in Cain Velasquez and a legit number 1 contender in Junior Dos Santos. It's going to be a phenomenal fight on Saturday.
Chatting with Dave Simon from Ringside Report Radio on mixed martial arts. It's Game Points here on TSN 690. We're here until 7:30 this evening. Up next, we will recap all of what's happening at the 4 o'clock games. But Dave, you mentioned the 2 heavyweights here. What else is on that card that entices you? Well, you're going to watch it regardless, but
of course,
what's going to entice the casual watcher?
Well, I think the casual fan's going to be interested in that main event, and if you don't want to see that, you're going to be interested in Daniel Cormier versus Roy Nelson. It's the co-main event. Cormier is Cain Velasquez's training partner and his wrestling coach. He's an Olympic-level athlete. He represented the United States, and he's got a big-time fight here with Roy Nelson. I think Roy's going to have a tough time. But, Daniel Cormier is a guy who didn't look great in his UFC debut against Frank Mir. He's undefeated. He's looked very, very good in Strikeforce and different places, but as far as in the UFC, he's 1-0, but not the most impressive decision victory over Mir. So Cormier is going to be looking to maybe shake off some of those UFC jitters, look really impressive, and for him, he's going to hope to really sway UFC management and the fans in his direction as far as getting a title shot. Cormier is in a weird spot right now as a heavyweight. He doesn't want a title shot against Cain Velasquez, his training partner, so he is planning a drop down to 205 pounds. This is a guy that weighed in about 225, 230 for his last fight.
Wow.
And he's looking to drop down to 205 for his next bout because he wants a piece of Johnny Bones Jones. Of course, Jones is going to fight Glover Teixeira now in March. We were hearing at first it was going to be February. That's being pushed back to March now at the earliest in 2014. But Daniel Cormier wants a shot. He wants to go down to 205 pounds. And I think really if you want a title shot in the UFC and you're not willing to fight your training partner, that's his only option right now for Daniel Cormier. So he's hoping a win against Roy Nelson and then a drop down to 205 to see what he can do. Elsewhere, you got the former Strikeforce lightweight champion, Gilbert Melendez. He's one of the best 155-pound fighters in the world. He'll take on Diego Sanchez. John Dodson, former #1 contender at flyweight. He'll take on Daryl Montague. What's really interesting for me, and I think for a lot of Canadian MMA fans, is the UFC debut, finally, of Sarah Kaufman, the former women's bantamweight champion. She's from out in Victoria, BC. She'll be making her UFC debut. Finally, she was supposed to fight in August. That fight got canceled because her opponent, Sarah McMahon, had to pull out. Now Kaufman gets her UFC debut after months and months of waiting, almost years now at this point for Sarah. She'll take on Jessica Ai on the televised preliminary card. That is a big deal of a fight. Sarah Kaufman is the #2 ranked women's fighter in the world. As I said, she's the former 135-pound champion, and she's looking to make her way back into title contention and get a rematch with Ronda Rousey.
And that's what everyone's building towards, right? I mean, that's some big money. That'll be the biggest. Would you say that's the biggest women's fight of all time to date, if that happens?
Kaufman and Rousey? No, I don't think so. Sarah Kaufman, unfortunately, is just not that marketable of a fighter. The fight with Miesha Tate that Ronda Rousey is going to have next, I think is a more marketable fight because Miesha Tate is maybe more known to the UFC fans and, they've got the Ultimate Fighter behind it. That might be the biggest fight in women's history, but, Sarah Kaufman just doesn't have the exposure to be that popular and that well-known. In Canada, I think she's pretty well-known, and for hardcore MMA people, they know who she is, but right now, I think that the Miesha Tate Ronda Rousey fight is going to generate more money than a Sarah Kaufman Ronda Rousey fight would, which is unfortunate considering Sarah Kaufman has a victory over Miesha Tate. She's beat pretty much everybody in her division except for Ronda Rousey, so she'll have to win a couple more fights, but I think a win here on Saturday night and then another win, she should be right back up there for a title shot.
All right, and Dave, what's coming up on Wednesday?
Coming up on Wednesday, hopefully we get on the air. We're going to be on after a little Major League Baseball. Friday night, we were waiting. We thought, we might be able to get on, but that game didn't end until about 1:45 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were waiting here. We didn't actually get to go and get on the air here. The game went 14 innings. So hopefully the game doesn't go 14 innings on Wednesday, and we'll talk some MMA. We still have to talk about Husimar Paul Harris. We haven't really got to that on the program. Husimar won on Wednesday night, didn't let go to the submission fast enough, and was subsequently released and banned for life from the UFC.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not the first instance of this for Husimar Paul Harris. He has a history of hanging on to submissions for too long, past the tap of his opponent. The referee really had to struggle to pull him off. This is, the reputation that Husimar carried into this fight, and he did it again, and he paid a huge, huge price for it. So we'll talk about that on Wednesday night. That was That
That's
was
bizarre.
pretty crazy.
I'd like to hear more. You should try and get him on your program.
Yeah, Husimar's English is not great.
Maybe he doesn't understand the referee.
And he's in Brazil right now, so it might be difficult to get a hold of Husimar. A lot of people trying to, talk to him right now. He's, he's in a tough spot. He's coming off a win, but he's just been banned from the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good spot to be in.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.